Now on BBC One, Screen One presents an unusual and sometimes disturbing film marking Halloween. Over the centuries, there have been countless reports of ghosts and ghouls, but the line between fact and fiction has always been unclear. Using the modern idiom of the outside broadcast, Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, Mike Smith and Craig Charles star in Ghostwatch.
And just to confirm, you're not going to be listening to an audio version of Ghostwatch. Welcome back to Horror Cult Trash Ever. We are the show that discusses all the masterpieces and trash pieces in genre cinema. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And yeah, as the introduction said, we are talking about Ghostwatch this week. Again, thanks to everyone who's been listening to these Halloween Classics episodes. It's great to know that we're still talking about good films. People still want to listen to us. It's amazing. So thanks a lot for your support.
Yes, thank you very much.
We've been
much appreciated.
We've been getting a lot of US listeners. I mean, obviously, you know, we've got the movie So Bad They're Good guys, but even aside from that, you know, we've been getting more and more people from America listening. So
it's nice they understand us.
Yeah,
understand our accents, which is good.
I'm probably not going to understand a lot about this episode.
They'll probably struggle maybe with the context of what Ghostwatch was.
Yeah, so there was a show in America that sounded a bit similar to this. I believe, said as a message, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's called the WNFN special, Halloween special, which was an investigation into a haunting that was broadcast live. It's a similar sort of thing to that, from what I've heard of it. I mean, I need to look further into it. But to give you a brief history of Ghostwatch, we've got a shitload of trivia for you. So maybe it's not going to be so brief.
Yeah, I think of all the films that we will discuss on the podcast, this one needs the most notes, little side notes and fun facts and trivia.
I mean, first and foremost, you know, there's a few laughable things about it, some even within the trivia, a few laughable things in the film, but just to reassure you, I mean, this is what we do here. We pick apart films, you know. I mean, people think we're funny, apparently, but you know, just to let you know, this is a fucking scary film. This is well, for me anyway. Chris wasn't so scared. I think this is terrifying.
Not so much for myself, but I can understand why.
There's 3 films that I could watch over and over again and now still be just as scary as the first time I watched them. This is one of them. The other 2 are Hell House, the found footage film from a few years back, and of course The Exorcist. Those 3 films never fail to be scary. But yeah, there's just something about this that just, I don't know. I don't know whether it's because obviously we're so well versed on the history of it now, and you know, again, dissecting films the way we do makes you look at them in a different way. Like, I found it scarier than the first time I watched it this time around. But yeah, no, I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen it already, go and give it a watch before listening to this. It's definitely worth checking out. But to go into the history of it, Chris, did you want to
I'll so Ghostwatch was a TV movie, essentially, here in the UK. It was screened on Halloween night of 1992 on BBC One. BBC One being the main channel here in the UK. So it's a big deal. Deal on the night. BBC One. After the Watershed, so the Watershed finishes at 9:00, and that's where more sort of adult entertainment comes on. But, you know, it's still kind of prime time-ish, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of just gone 9:00. And yeah, so it stars Michael Parkinson. I don't know how to describe to a non-UK audience. Michael Parkinson's a bit like David Letterman.
Yeah, I'd say that.
So he was a talk show host, a sort of well-renowned TV presenter, very trusted presenter, quite old school in his way, and so he stars, he's our sort of show host, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got on the phones Mike, what's his surname?
Mike Smith.
Mike Smith, I'm not too familiar with, but I think...
Well, he was on Blue Peter with Sarah Green, his wife, who's also on this show.
So Sarah Green is our sort of roving reporter within the house that's the subject of this film. And she was known as a children's TV presenter on Blue Peter.
Yeah, and Mike was on there with her from time to time, I believe.
So some famous faces.
And of course, Craig Charles,
We've got Craig Charles.
at the time was well known for Red Dwarf.
Red Dwarf, so he was known more of a sitcom actor. He was more of a comedian at the time, wasn't he, Craig Charles?
Yeah, he did the voice for a game show. What was it?
It was Takeshi's
Castle.
But that wasn't at the time. That was after that.
Yeah, so I mean, he was a well-known. Again, these are all well-known TV personalities.
Yeah, so
that
the whole idea is that these are TV personalities. They're not, apart from Craig Charles, who's more known as a comedy actor. These weren't known as actors. They were known as TV presenters, real-life people. You know, with a history of being on TV screens.
Yeah, and they especially weren't connected with any sort of horror background or anything like that. So they are the last people you'd expect to see in something like this. And again, these are people that the UK trust, you know, and the BBC is a station that the UK trusts. So when they're being told that they're about to watch something that is the real accounts of a paranormal investigation, which obviously the introduction you heard at the start of the show is the actual introduction from that night, you know, they had no reason not to believe them, you know, I mean...
Not necessarily. From the research that we've done, it was sort of the part of the terms of the BBC showing this, and this is crazy for the BBC to show.
Yeah,
you know, we have a channel called Channel 4 here in the UK, which is, you know, one of the main channels, but Channel 4 was more cult things, wasn't it? Really,
yeah, it's grittier than the BBC.
Grittier. It sort of pushed the boundaries a little more than the BBC did. The BBC is paid for by not advertising, so the BBC don't advertise. So it was seen as more of a, you know, a professional channel, for want of a better word. Not saying that Channel 4 isn't professional, but Channel 4 was more cutting edge, whereas the BBC, it's crazy that they would put something like this on. It was, you know, even now...
What do you mean, not necessarily, then?
Not necessarily what, sorry?
Because I said that it's because the UK trusts them and... You know,
yeah, they do, but from the research that we did, part of the reason why the BBC would produce this is that all the sort of in magazines and such, they would have to state that this is
so
fictional.
they said that this is a drama within
drama.
TV guides and such, but a lot of the fear surrounding this came from people who didn't read up on that and just switched it on on Halloween night, you know, just flicking through the TV, and then all of a sudden this show's on where, you know, people are looking for ghosts and then shit just goes crazy. I mean, if you look at it nowadays, if this was shown on Halloween 2019, you would have the whole of Twitter saying how fake it is. You know, you would have the people who had read the TV guide. You'd have the internet providing information. It's a drama. You know, it's kind of like a safety net. It'll be there. You expect this now.
Yeah.
You it wouldn't be as scary. You'd know it's not real.
Yeah.
And of course, since this show was broadcast in 1992, it had such an impact that you got things like Most Haunted, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, all these paranormal reality shows that weren't about prior to this being broadcast. And then even within the film industry, Oren Peli, the director of Paranormal Activity, has stated that this was one of his key influences. And, you know, he believes it should be seen a lot more worldwide. And, you know, even the Blair Witch Project came after this. I think the only bit of found footage you had before this was Cannibal Holocaust. And, of course, I don't think that had any sort of influence on this, but that was really the only sort of found footage you get prizes, because this really was the inventor of paranormal found footage.
Yeah, this is groundbreaking.
Yeah,
I will give it that. It's definitely groundbreaking. This is completely new territory for 1992.
Yeah, and with that came backlash. So on the night, the BBC had a phone line set up within the film, and on this phone line, people could call up and it would tell them it's a drama, but to give them their own tales of the paranormal. So obviously, when this started, so many people called this number that it jammed the phone lines, and when people were getting through, the answering machine message wasn't playing, so they didn't know that this wasn't real. It was just a jammed line. So, of course, they weren't getting this message saying it's a drama. And, of course, by the time it was jammed, that's when stuff was going crazy within the film. But 20 to 30,000 people called up complaining. And after it was broadcast, they received some rather bizarre calls about happenings within the film. One of my favourites is a man shat himself whilst watching it, and his wife called up demanding compensation for a new pair of jeans. 3 women went into labour whilst watching it. Kids were diagnosed with PTSD from watching it. A priest called up saying he was aware that the show was fake, but he believes that by showing it, they had summoned demons and ghosts across the UK. And one of the more serious matters that happened is a young man with learning difficulties watched it, and he became obsessed because they had within the film, the whole point is that the ghost makes sounds that sounds like broken pipes, and this guy had broken pipes within his house, so he became obsessed and believed there were ghosts within his house. And he sadly committed suicide and left a note behind saying, if ghosts are real, then I'll be with you forever as a ghost. Which is quite chilling that this film could have that much of an impact.
That is quite a sad outcome, unfortunately. It is crazy that a film, just an hour and a half could have such an impact on... obviously, we love our films. And we take them relatively seriously. But it's a very sad outcome from this. Yeah.
I mean, of course, and prior to this, I know going back, we said this is the first instance. I mean, there's obviously War of the Worlds. Are you aware of the backstory?
Yeah. So this is partly influenced by War of the Worlds, actually, which was, I believe, late 1930s. Orson Welles did a radio production of War of the Worlds, the George Orwell novel, and he deliberately staged it so that it seemed real, and people listened, and they thought that aliens had come down and were taking over the planet, and there was a massive uproar similar to Ghostwatch. And it sort of became a precursor to this style of filmmaking,
And that became popular, of course, with how old that was. That became popular through word of mouth, as did Ghostwatch. We actually had someone message us earlier when we announced that we were watching this today for 31 Days of Horror. Someone messaged saying that it was pretty much the talk of the playground day after, with people that have stayed up and watched it. And how did you hear about it? Was it through me?
No, it was a Channel 4 sort of countdown of the 100 scariest
Yeah,
moments.
I saw on this.
And I ain't gonna lie, I watched this and it was part of that. I can't remember what number it was in the 100 scariest moments, and I did think it looked a little tacky. So I wasn't
it showed
really...
that scene where Suzanne gets possessed, and that was like the only thing they're shown from it. And out of context,
I thought it just looked a little tacky, and I'd never heard of it before then. I was 4 years old when it was broadcast, so I would have been nowhere near watching the TV at that time.
I was 5 months old when it was broadcast.
I would have been in bed, and so I'd never heard of it, never heard of any of the uproar or anything. I don't think my parents had watched it; they would never have mentioned it. So it was this 100 scariest moments. I thought it looked a little tacky. And so I wasn't really inclined to watch it, and then met Gary, and he loved it.
Yeah, see, I mean, for me, it was quite the opposite. I mean, my family on my mother's side are quite into the whole, paranormal thing, so they're very well versed on that stuff, shall we say. My dad, not so much, but even like from when I started discovering horror films when I was younger, and as time went on, and when Most Haunted came out, and my family would watch things like that, my mum would tell me that my uncle, he was one of the many that were calling up the line once it was jammed when that was on. It, like, my whole family watched it. Recently, my dad was telling me that he watched it and it was terrifying at the time, and it had the impact on them. And then it kind of just sat to the back of my mind for years. And then I saw it on the Channel 4 100 Scariest Moments program, and then I sorted out. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm really curious now. I want to see what this is like. And I remember the first time watching it, obviously knowing the backstory behind it and everything, and I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. But then I made a pact to just watch it every year at this time of year, and have done for about 10, 15 years now, probably.
Well, you watch every year?
Every single year.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's what you got to look forward to for the rest of our relationship.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, just to, we mentioned how this influenced Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch Projects and such. Well, this also I believe this would have influenced The Conjuring 2, because they're both based off the same backstory of the Enfield haunting, which took place in the 70s, I believe, when, similar story to this film. A family, supposedly tormented by poltergeists and demons and such, and had investigators go in and whatnot. But you could tell, if you watch The Conjuring 2 and you watch this, you can tell the similarities are definitely
it's
there.
pretty much the same story.
Yeah.
It is pretty much the same story.
And this is directed by, this is female directed, which is always great, Leslie Manning, and written by Stephen Volk. And shall we get into this?
Yeah, let's get into it. We might not be so long as normal with this one.
I think it's probably going to be longer.
You think?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
if we check the time, what we're on now, if I can get into my phone, it doesn't seem to want to let me.
Now, if you hear any noises throughout this, it's not pipes. It's our neighbour upstairs. Unfortunately, we don't have a studio that we go to and record this. This is in our living room on Gary's iPhone. So maybe there might be some noises throughout. Quite fitting, actually. But I can hear them already. Somebody's doing some sort of fucking tap dancing upstairs or whatnot.
I mean, I still can't get onto my phone. We have actually received a message as we're recording this from my friend, Luke, who is in a band that I used to play gigs with when I did more stuff in my band, and he was saying how this terrified him when he was younger, and how the scenes with pipes randomly appearing are very effective. Oh, but I finally got into my phone, and it's we're 18 minutes in, yeah, so we're normally like about 20 minutes into what we're talking about by now.
Yeah.
But let's get on to it.
We'll start.
Michael Parkinson introduces and explains what the show is about, and as he goes on to explain, his family have been terrorised by a ghost for the past 10 months. We are shown some footage that they're captured within this house, and it's of the two girls, Kim and Susan. They're in their bedroom, about to go to sleep, and one of them gets up to go to the toilet, comes back, and then all of a sudden there's banging around the room, banging noises. The lamp beside the bed levitates and smashes. It builds an atmosphere for the rest of the film, and that footage is revisited later on. But before it is, we get a lovely, cheesy 90s intro to the show.
Oh, it was, yeah, very cheesy, actually.
Cheesy music, cheesy people reacting to a bright light shining in their face.
Yes.
But again, that adds to the realistic side of it. I mean, you look back at this now, you're like, oh, okay, that's the introduction to a ghost hunting show. But back then, you'd be like, oh, shit, okay.
It looks almost like a parody.
Yeah.
It does look almost like a parody, actually.
So then we get introduced to Dr. Lynn Pascoe, our slay queen of the film.
Yes, Dr. Lynn Pascoe has a lot to say on many occasions. And
she is up there with Horror Cult Trash Over Hall of Fame.
She is. And she is actually played by an actual actress. Gillian Beavan, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So she's not a well-known face. So the audience believes that is Dr. Lynn Pascoe.
Yeah, and then within the next 10 minutes or so, it's a lot of, you can't even say character building, because really, four of these aren't even characters, they're actually people playing themselves.
It's just a lot of introduction, really. So it's, we're introduced to Craig Charles, who's quite dismissive of the whole thing, and a little jokey.
He's the comedic side of things.
Yeah, he's...
Then we get Pam, the mother of the family. We get the phone line and Mike Smith explaining he's there to answer the phones. And then Sarah Green's introduced on site. And then we get an interview with Pam, Suzanne and Kim about their happenings. And Pam gets a little emotional.
She does, yeah. She's having a hard time with it all.
Yeah.
Living with the impossible, as she says.
Yes.
And Michael Parkinson says we're going to get updates every hour. So I don't know what he means by that. Because...
Well, I mean, again, going back to the things it's influenced, if you look at Most Haunted, for example, when they do their live Halloween shows, that goes on for about fucking 5 hours.
So does that mean that the intent was this to go on all
night? I think so, yeah. I mean, obviously, we know how things end.
Yeah.
Quite abruptly. So, I think the plan was for it to go on longer than that. There is a point within the film where Michael Parkinson says they're going to go on as long as they can until the whole thing's solved and whatnot. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think that was the intention. So, we find out that, obviously, Lynn... Dr. Lynn Pascoe is a strong believer in ghosts. She's an expert within that field. And then we get Sarah Green explaining that she's had a few experiences that scared her and Mike, who didn't seem too happy about her telling the story.
No, what I found at the beginning of the film is that the women tend to be the ones that believe... and the men are the more sceptical ones. So you got Craig Charles, who's quite jokey about the whole thing. Michael Parkinson is... he's neither here nor there, but I think he kind of sides on the, we're going to end up finding out this is a load of crap.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Sarah Green seems to be really into it. She's got her own story. Lynn Pascoe has spent years investigating all of this. The mother and the two daughters obviously believe that they're living through paranormal activity. Yeah, there we go.
Really?
Well, that's what it is, paranormal activity.
You could say it about doing it as a fun to the film.
There's the influence there. So I find that the women are the ones that... And I don't know how much we can read into this anyway.
But you can, though, because this has become a trope. This has become a trope within films containing paranormal stuff. I mean, you look at Insidious, The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity. All of these films, I mean, some of the sequels aren't quite the same, but you look at the originals, this is always a female character saying, look, I know this shit's going on in my house, and those was like, get the fuck out of here, this isn't going on, and whatever. It's always that case now.
Why is that then?
I don't know. I mean, the Dead Meat podcast did a bit on this when they were talking about paranormal activity, and they're saying how much it pisses them off that this is always a thing. But, I mean, to be honest, even look back further. Look at The Haunting. I know the main purpose of that film was that a male character brought them to that location to find out something's going on. But you look at Twin Peaks guy, what's his name?
Russ Tamblyn.
Yeah, he was quite making jokes of it and everything, and then the females in that were believing it. And then you look at like The Exorcist. obviously the mum knows what's going on, and even when she tries to convince the priest at first, they're constantly trying to make things up, say, okay, no, this is what's going on, and so it's kind of been a thing forever. This has always been.
Yeah, and they did tend to latch on to female characters. So within The Haunting, the character played by Julia Harris, I forget her name, Eleanor.
Yeah.
Eleanor, you know, the ghost or the house that's haunted latches onto her. Within The Conjuring, the demon latches onto the mother. Within The Conjuring 2, you know, similar story to this, to Ghostwatch as well. The ghost is seen to latch on to one of the children, or both of the children.
Yeah, it's always children or women.
Yeah.
Even, do you know what? Even look outside of the supernatural subgenre. Even look at Nightmare on Elm Street. What's the first thing that happens in that? You get female character, experiences as within her dreams, and then it cuts to a scene where all the friends are together. First thing is the two females are talking about it. Male friend comes in, makes a joke about it.
Yeah.
It seems to be such a thing within the horror genre as a whole, then.
I think so, and I think
Which we may even touch on slightly during our Scream Queens episode we got coming up.
Yeah, we probably will, actually. Because obviously the role of females in horror films is a huge topic. I mean, we could do a podcast dedicated purely to that.
Yeah.
You know, I just found it quite interesting that within this film, the men are the skeptics, and potentially not until, you know, not throughout the whole film, they're skeptical. But it's the females from the start that are like, yeah, I actually think something's going on. Definitely. Something paranormal.
Well, we are next introduced to some more male characters, and apparently they look a lot like other celebrities.
Yeah, Sarah Green had this weird thing at the beginning where she just compared everyone she saw to a celebrity.
Yeah, we've got the cameraman. Apparently, Chris, the cameraman, apparently he looks like Mike Getting. Did you find out who Mike Getting is?
I didn't actually find out who that was. I believe it was some sort of sports star. I'm not even sure. To even Google him, I wouldn't even know how to spell his name.
And then she introduces the sound guy, who was called Mike, I believe. Was he also called Mike, the sound guy?
I think so.
So she introduces him, and apparently he looks like Adrian Edmondson from Bottom, the British comedy TV show.
I'm sorry, we've got this news just in. Mike Gatting was a cricketer.
There we go, you were right.
I was right, actually. I didn't think he was a cricketer.
Sports expert, Chris Barker here.
There we go.
So...
Right-handed batsman, there we are.
Okay. Was that a euphemism?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, then they enter the house, and they then cut back to the studio, and the phone calls start coming in, and Emma from Slough noticed that in the footage at the start of the show with the two girls in bed, there was a figure in the background in a black dress. And immediately that makes you think, oh shit, did I see that at the start of the film? And then, you know, later on, Michael Parkinson and Lynn Pascal, they look into it, and you can see it clearly on there. It's clearly the first sighting of the spirit within this film. And they're like, no, there's nothing there. It's just a dressing gown hung up, looking like something else. You know, it's like faces in the fire and such. And yeah.
Well, fun little fact, that phone call, Emma, the voice was Ruth Sheen.
What the fuck is that noise?
It's quite ironic that this is happening during this episode.
I am absolutely shitting myself.
We haven't had many noises.
That does sound like a pipes noise.
It does, don't. Okay. We're not deliberately doing this.
The fuck?
I hope you can actually hear this, because
This is a podcast first.
I was gonna say, but if they're not hearing the noises, then we just sound
I know.
weird.
If you can't hear the noises, then it sounds like pipes being moved.
Yeah. Anyway, as I was saying, the voice of Emma was Ruth Sheen, who went on to star in a lot of Mike Leigh films, and I'm a massive Mike Leigh fan. Fantastic British director. So that was a fun little fact for me. I don't know if it's for anyone else.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea.
I was like, oh yeah, Ruth Sheen, love her. Love her.
In between the scene where they get the phone call from Emma from Slough and when they look back at the footage, we're given a bit more history of the story going on within the house itself. After we get some apple bobbing from Sarah. And then we get a very effective jump scare that gets me every single time. And it's a jump scare that was actually replicated in Paranormal Activity 3. If you've seen that film, you'll recall a scene where a character jumps out of a wardrobe with a mask on and scares the people that think they're investigating into paranormal noises, but it's all messing about. And Craig Charles does that in this one, and it nearly made me jump off the sofa.
Yeah, okay.
Did it make you jump?
Not really.
Oh. Anyway.
Well, Sarah Green's not best pleased.
No, she's fuming.
Again, because she's a big believer in this.
Yeah, and everyone's just basically mocking her at this stage.
And, for him to take the piss like that, she believes that these people, their lives are being ruined by this. They, about to have a breakdown over all of this, and he's jumping out of the cupboard with a wolf mask on. So she quite rightly calls him a beast.
Yeah.
Boost. She didn't say it like that, but so I thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, if we're talking about character development, Sarah Green probably has the most in this.
Yeah,
she's our main girl.
Then by the time you get to the end of it, you feel concerned for her.
Yeah, she's our main girl.
Well, and the thing is, if you knew her from Blue Peter as well, then you'd have already had that connection then, and this just builds onto that.
Yeah. But I thought it was quite effective, her sort of characterisation. I know she's playing herself, but it is a characterisation.
We then get some more character development within the family that are there. We find out that Susan saw her mum standing at the bottom of a bed one night, but it wasn't her. Pam and Kim heard bangs around the house, and that's when they established that the ghost's name is Pipes, because the mum tried making it easier for the child to sleep at night, should we say, by saying that it's just the pipes making noises, but then she started calling the ghost Pipes. Apparently he lives downstairs in the basement in the glory hole.
Yeah, so the bit under the stairs, which seems to be the focal point of the activity.
We find out why later.
Yeah, it was the mum's ex-husband. He had a dark room under there for his photography, and she used to call it the glory hole. So obviously that's hilarious. And I'm struggling to understand why she would call it a glory hole.
Yeah, it's not like glory holes became a thing after 1992.
What's her... Well, I don't know. What?
Maybe they used to have sex in the basement.
Well...
Are you researching the history of glory holes?
I'm going to have to. I'm sorry. We should have done this beforehand. Because I don't understand why she would call it a glory hole.
This week on the history of glory holes.
Oh, glory hole. Here we are. Wow, I got so many porn sites come up then. It's a mining term. So it's a hole in a mine shaft where an ore body is mined upwards until it breaks through the surface into the open air. So that must have been her reference point.
So it wasn't that he used to stick his dick through the door.
I don't think he used to stick his dick through the door.
And that's how Susan and Kim were conceived.
For a glory hole. Well.
Anyway, glory hole aside.
I know you're no expert, but you can't really be conceived that way.
I mean, it depends where they position the glory. Okay, now let's just move on.
Not.
So we get introduced to some drawings that Kim did, matching the description of Pipes that the caller was given. Obviously a bold man in a dress. But her drawing includes a bit of blood, and she gives it to Sarah Green as a gift, and they put it on the fridge.
Oh, yeah, very nice.
And then the scariest part about this scene is the hint at child abuse. Pam found writing in a book, and what did the writing say again?
Oh, I forgot. I didn't write
It was
down.
bloody ghost or bloody... So, I don't know, some sort of profanity in a book that Susan wrote in at school, and she swore it wasn't her that did it. And apparently, Pam wanted to hit her.
Yeah.
Come on, 90s, when smacking a child was
Very
acceptable.
much a sign of the times, that is. As are the Jason Donovan
posters.
MC Hammer and Crisscross posters within the girls' room.
Yeah, it
But
did
it's
scream
Definitely
90s.
1992.
Even more than Dr. Lynn Pascal's amazing outfit.
That is a good outfit.
But that's when they rewind footage, you see Pipes, and then after this... actually, that's when the glory hole was first mentioned, and apparently they had to board the glory. Okay, I'm going to call it the basement. They had to board the basement up because Pam got locked in there one day and couldn't get back out, and she felt a man breathing on her, and apparently he had cabbage breath.
Yeah, he did have cabbage breath, like really bad cabbage.
Yeah.
She says.
And then Sandra from Sussex calls up and tells us a ghost story, which wasn't very exciting. We can move past that.
No, wait. Go back. When she got stuck in the glory hole,
Yeah.
she says, when she got locked in, she says that all the girls could hear was her banging.
Okay, stop.
So what?
I'm here telling everyone how scary this film is, and you're highlighting the dirty dialogue.
Wow. Should talk about glory holes then, should she?
What was your other favourite line later on that had you in stitches?
Oh, yeah, I didn't write that down.
It's Sarah Green. Oh, I'm all wet. Let's go upstairs.
Yeah.
Anyway,
A bit of context for that in a bit.
maturity issues aside. No, I didn't note it down, so I'm going to say it now whilst I remember. They have problems with the taps, and Sarah Green has to get Susan a glass of water, so she gets this glass of water, splashes her hand, makes her wet, and she has to go upstairs.
I'm all wet now. Let's go upstairs.
Moving on, we get to find out that Dr. Lynn Pascal has a book and a film out about this. Except the film hasn't been released yet, but she's made it comprising of interviews with the family and such. The book is called Angels of the Odd, and then we get another pipe sighting shortly as Lynn and Michael Parkinson, they stand around this tape recorder and they listen into a clip from the film that Lynn's made. And within this clip, it's got Susan, who, again, a scene that was done in Conjuring 2, they were getting her to talk in a demon voice with water in her mouth. And this voice was still coming through, and it was doing the round around the garden nursery rhyme. And it sounded pretty creepy, but in the background, what's scarier is Pipes comes into the frame of the camera behind Lynn, and sort of just stands there, stares at her, and then disappears.
Yeah, he's very slightly lit, isn't he? So we only see a little bit of a profile.
Yeah, and then we're shown a bucket of evidence, which has some bent spoons, a watch that's stopped, which becomes a more predominant thing later on in the film, broken cutlery and ornaments, and then after that we're shown a picture of Susan with all scratches on her face. I mean, this is obviously something that may have been influenced from The Exorcist if it wasn't something within the story this is based on.
I think it was part of the story it was based on. But then they think that whole thing...
Yeah, I think it's her going through puberty, and then Pam gets a bit defensive, and she's like, there's nothing wrong with my Susie.
But what Lynn Pascal thinks is that the I'm gonna say poltergeist.
The ghost thing.
The ghost has the focus is on Suzanne because she's reached puberty and she's very introverted and she potentially has some sort of psychological problems.
Yeah.
She's not, quite there. She's sort of quiet and not very popular, and so she thinks that this poltergeist has seen Suzanne as an easier target and an easier focus because of these reasons.
Yeah.
And that sort of brings up what we saw before, in a film like The Haunting. Eleanor, she was very introverted and she was quiet and she, was sort of downtrodden, and she became the focus of that ghost, So it's quite interesting how they all sort of play into each other. I'm not going to sit here and say why that is. I don't know.
Well, do you know who has got something to say about it?
Yeah.
American physicist Dr. Emilio Silvestri. He comes in
This guy.
and he is like, yeah, you're all full of shit. And then Lynn is not having it.
Well,
our queen is not having it.
Well, Emilio's got a very fake-looking poster of New York next to him. I don't know. It's very Eurovision, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're led to believe that he's in New York, and it's like nighttime in New. Well, it wouldn't be Oh yeah, I suppose it would. No, it'd be daytime in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're like 8 hours behind us.
He's like, yeah, nothing's going on.
He's very
you're all,
sort of like, nah.
You're all lying, and Lynn's like, you
shit.
bastard. Well, not the exact line of dialogue, but she's like, she's proper standing up to him, gives him what for. It's like, go on, Lynn.
She's fuming.
Yeah.
She's absolutely fuming.
Michael Parkinson's trying to hold his laughter back between them two arguing.
Yeah, I think Michael Parkinson is tending to side on Emilio.
Slightly. I think he's a bit on both, though. I don't know. He's a bit in and out throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
But Lynn just tells Emilio that he just doesn't believe it because he's scared of it.
Yeah, and that he needs to get out of the lab and into real life. So all these, and she's basically saying it.
She's basically saying he's a piece of shit.
No, yeah, but she's kind of saying, well, you're there telling us about the science. Give me science for love, give me science for artistic inspiration. You can't see that in a lab. You can't see the science behind that. But, we all know that love exists. So take it out into the real world, and the paranormal activity is a little like love. I mean, the massive stretch. But I mean, while she's giving this speech, all his gays about it, like, yes, you go, girl. You fucking tell him. Yeah, I think maybe there is a little bit of the male versus female characteristics there. I think Emilio is not a very developed character.
No.
He just comes in a couple of times and says...
We only see him once more after this.
Yeah, but maybe he's sort of the representative of a chauvinistic male who only believes in science and what he can see.
Yeah.
And what he can touch. Whereas Lynn is more emotional as a female. Well,
it's after this point where shit starts to go down. So Kim wants to go to bed.
This is... Sorry to interrupt you there, Gary. But this is kind of a film of two halves. We get a very long introduction.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn to begin with.
Which is realistic to what it'd be like to watch one of those shows.
It is what, we're introduced to filming equipment. We're introduced to the backstory. We've got Lynn looking at, broken, cutlery and plates and stuff. So it doesn't get right into the action. And a lot of films like this are the same.
Yeah.
From what I remember, Paranormal Activity, you know, there's a lot of
there's a lot of
character
build-up.
introduction.
Because with these things, you're meant to think this is real. If it was, if it was a film, like you've got Insidious and The Conjuring, they immediately start something happening because you know you're watching a film.
Yeah.
If you're watching a found footage film, you're meant to be watching something that's been recovered. I mean, with this, for instance, you're meant to be watching a live broadcast of what essentially should have been a boring ghost show.
Yeah.
Of something, people just looking into things to try and find out if ghosts are real. That's it. You know, you're not... Things that happen in this aren't meant to actually happen.
But this is the moment in the film, essentially, when Kimmy goes to bed.
Yeah, this is where it snaps.
This is where it starts. This is...
Yeah, so you get the crew walking downstairs, and as they're walking down, you can see they go past Suzanne, and she's sitting there, she's just watching TV static. First, alarm bells. This happened in Poltergeist. Shit's about to go down. And then the crew's watches stop, like the stuff within the evidence box. And then anonymous guest, we get these little video clips of this anonymous guest talking. His face is blurred out, and he tells the story about a ghost that kept spitting at him and then took a shit in his house.
Yeah, so the guy doesn't want to be shown on TV. So
you know why after this story.
His face is blurred out, and he just recounts a story of a ghost dribbling on on the mackerel he's about to eat. And then
you'd be so pissed off though.
And then
you get this nice piece of food you're about to eat, and some ghost just goes and has a dribble on it,
and then dribbles on his shoes, and then leaves little turds around the house. And then smears shit all over his bathroom. I didn't think ghosts could start smearing shit and drooling it. That's a new one for me. I've never seen a ghost film where there's little turds left all around the house. Unless it's like a ghost dog. I mean, that's kind of what a ghost dog would do, isn't it?
Don't really know, if I'm honest.
But you might have been haunted by a dog.
Well, from the laughable to the terrifying, this next sequence is, in my opinion, one of the scariest sequences in the whole film, which is strange because it's mainly because of dialogue. We get Craig Charles again, and he goes for a walk in the street, and he starts talking to some of the neighbours. Now we get Yvonne and her friend, look like something straight out of Coronation Street.
She looks like an Yvonne as well.
Yeah, she does look like a Yvonne. She's outside
straight
with
out
a
of
mate.
Corrie.
And they talk about how they've witnessed things happening. They saw some stuff happening within the house that the film's about. But then they go into the history of their town itself, or that drive, should we say. And they say a girl called Judy went missing. A 5-year-old got stabbed. And then they tell a story about this black Labrador dog who their kids found in the park with his insides ripped out. Oh, well, her insides ripped out, shall I say, because the dog was pregnant. And what was said then?
There were fetuses everywhere.
What did you find that so funny? I thought it was terrifying.
I don't know. I was just like... it'd been a bit light-hearted. I saw this film as a little cheesy.
Okay, but on that night, you're watching TV.
Yeah,
and
but
these two women...
I can't put myself into that position. I'm here in 2019 watching it. I've watched plenty of films that are similar to this. I know, the story. I know that it's not real. So when, Craig Charles, he's quite light-hearted. He's the comedic guy. So when he goes up to these women, and I'm just expecting a ghost, I saw, a ghost in the park once. And then I get stories about a 5-year-old being stabbed, and then a dog's fetuses all over the park. It sort of catches you off guard, and I'm like, oh.
The next bit certainly caught you off guard, didn't it?
Sinister.
The next bit caught you off guard.
What?
The next pipe sighting.
Oh yeah, it did actually. Yeah, I got you to go back on this one.
Yeah, again, Craig Charles is, after this story's told about the dog and the 5-year-old being knifed and Judy going missing, he walks off, and as he's walking past the neighbour standing in the background, you get to see Pipes again, and this is probably the most clear the clearest you get to see him, and you can see his eyes have been ripped, and the guy who plays him, oh my god, he is terrifying. He looks so scary.
He does actually look.
And I don't know if it's because you only get to see him briefly, but like you can see he's had holes ripped in his ears, and he looks terrifying. And then we get an interview after that. We get an interview of a priest who went to bless the house but felt sick for a week after and smelt blood on his hands. And then we cut back to, quite abruptly, the house where it's all going down, and a wet patch appears on the floor where they take a sample of it, but then Suzanne appears with a bad stomach. She's got a case of the old Code Brown.
Yeah, so there's a perfect circle of water in the middle of the living room, and they're like, oh, no person just splashing water on the ground could do that. It's definitely a ghost. And poor Suzanne has a bad tummy. She's got a case of the Code Browns. And that's when we get the crazy tap.
Yeah. And,
when
Sarah Green getting
Sarah
wet.
Green's getting her a bit of, is it antacid or something?
Yeah.
Or something to stop her diarrhea from going crazy.
And shortly after this, we get another phone call, and it's Kevin and his mates from Neath, and his cheese pickle sandwich fell on the floor.
So he's made himself a cheese and pickle sandwich.
The ghost is just like, do you know what? Fuck you.
Fuck this cheese and pickle sandwich, and throws the plate on the floor.
And then we get
Michael Parkinson thinks it's bullshit. So this is the first time Michael
where it's
Parkinson
like, okay, mate.
is literally like, nah, that is a crank call.
Kev, come on.
That never happened. That's not real.
You're eating your cheese and pickle sandwich as we speak, Kev. It ain't happening, is it?
Yeah.
And then we cut back again abruptly to the house, and this is when it starts really, really picking up, because a lot of the time it's showing something else, like, okay, no, we quickly got to go back to the house because something's happening. And this time it's like scratching and running around that they could hear within Pam's room. Kim shouting that Pipes is in the kitchen, there's more banging noises. And when they go down to investigate in the kitchen, all of the drawings have been thrown about on the floor. A cat appears at the back door, which is a glass door, so you can see through it, which is a jump scare. And then as Sarah stands up, you get to see another sighting of Pipes, and he's standing behind the whole crew in the reflection. Again, really effective, because it's sort of like what James Wan does with Insidious. You've got to be watching it every second if you want to see these sightings, because they're so fast and they move away so quickly. But if you catch up, it's very, very effective.
Yeah, and I read that there were 13 instances.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I didn't see 13.
I'd say 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah. And we probably only saw the real obvious ones. So it would be interesting. I hope someone's done a YouTube compilation.
We'll have a look after. If anyone's actually seen these other sightings of him within this film, then just, drop us a message, let us know.
Yeah, because I would like to see them, because I've watched this twice now, and 4 or 5 is probably the max. But apparently it's 13, so...
Well, after this sighting of Pipes, we get some footage of the hallway, where it's revealed that the banging noises that were still happening at this point was actually Susan making these noises. Again, something from the Enfield haunting, where it's very famous that, one of the girls was caught faking it. Susan was making these loud noises, and this kind of, it shuts Lynn Pascal up a bit. She's a bit like, but then it only shuts her up for a couple of seconds, and she still tries, desperately trying to explain that this is still, very much a thing. This haunting is still very much going on. There must be an explanation behind this.
Michael Parkin says, we set out to catch a ghost. What we thought was a hoax.
Yeah.
And I think he seems a bit pleased that it's been resolved. He said, well, this has been resolved now. It's all a hoax. Always been a hoax. I'm sorry, Lynn. You know, you've wasted your time on this.
Yeah, that piece of shit Dr. Silvestri comes back with his fake New York picture. And he's like, I told you so. And then in the house, Susan's basically saying that she lied to make the crew stay. She's saying, look, I'm giving you what you want. You wanted a ghost for your show. Here you go. This is it. Which, I mean, if you're watching it at the time, you think, oh, well, what a waste of time I've spent watching this show, you know, think...
Well, she's essentially thinking, if nothing happens, then everyone's just going to forget and leave, and, you know, they're going to look like idiots.
Yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, again, that's, you know, this is a child we're dealing with within this film. There's some, you know, they think there's something that's going on. They're taking, taking it running a mile, and they're trying to make out that this stuff is actually happening. I mean, obviously you find out it is happening within this film, but, you know, obviously at that point you're thinking, shit, Woodman House happens. Let's,
Well, they'd already been ridiculed in the newspapers, and the media had sort of made out straight away that they were delusional.
Well, we're kind of thrown back into the deep end after that, because then there's another phone call. This one's an anonymous call, and it's this lady, and this is probably one of the scarier phone calls from the film, because a lot of them you can't take seriously. But this one is this lady who doesn't want to give a name, but she's saying a table exploded within her house. Her husband was taken to hospital, and she just keeps saying there's blood all over the walls. Why are you doing this? And then she's saying her kids are terrified. They're refusing to go to bed. They're refusing to stop watching the show. All of her clocks are stopped. And then it kind of clicks. It's like, oh, okay, hang on. Their clocks stopped. The kids are acting weird. Her husband's been sent to hospital. This is it's that, and her call sounds more convincing. You don't think it's a fake or anything. And then Michael Parkinson's like, well, why aren't your kids in bed? It's like, well, hang on a minute. She's saying there's blood over her walls and everything. It's like, well, you know, your kids should be in bed by now, shouldn't they?
Kids shouldn't be watching anyway. It is past the watershed.
So this call quickly ends, and then we get an interview shown from Lynn's film where Kim starts describing pipes and matching the description that the callers have been, because again we were told that more callers have been calling in, giving a description of a man in a dress, a bald man, with either no eyes or black eyes, and then it shows you Kim describing him prior to all of this.
And if we've noticed, if the viewers noticed him throughout, you know, one of these sort of cameos that he has, if we've noticed, then that matches the description that we've got as well.
So then we're back in the house, and there's cat noises. It sounds like they're trapped. And Kim comes rushing out, tells Sarah and everyone to get into the bedroom. They go in there, and Susan is hidden under the blanket. And they take the blanket off her, and then she's got all the scratches on her face again, and she just looks lifeless. And when she does start interacting, she's in some sort of trance where, you know, she doesn't want anyone near her. She reacts really dramatically every time anyone goes to touch her. Kim starts saying that Pipe said we all have to stay. And then we get another phone call back in the studio from a Mary Christopher. She doesn't say where she's from. And she gives a tale of a mother. Did you get the... Because it's quite hard to make out the name she says.
No.
But either way, it's a tale of a child murderer who used to live in Vauxhall, and she says she thinks it used to be that house where they lived. So then back into the house, Kim's refusing to leave, says she has to speak to Pipes. She says that he's in the room with them. He looks like someone's mum. Of course, this matches with what the caller just said. And then as the camera's panning to the left, you get another clear sight of Pipes just standing in the corner of the room where he is in the original footage at the start of the film. And then, you know, shit just really hits the fan. The camera starts breaking up. The technology's all breaking and whatnot. And then as they're leaving the house, Susan's backs into the corner of the room. And then that's the moment that was on the 100 Scariest Moments, where she puts on this possessed voice. So she's saying, you know, what big eyes you have, what big ears you have. And the mum's just like, stop it.
She-
It's like, hang on, no, you'd be screaming, get the fuck out of there, leave the daughter behind.
It is a little cheesy, this bit.
I mean, still, you know, when you're watching it within the film, it's scarier than when you're watching it randomly as a clip.
It is more effective in the context of the film.
A picture frame falls down, and then a very well-known trope within possession films. Susan turns to her mum and she tells her she always messes everything up, she hates her, and she tells her to leave. And then this quickly, again, this is really picking up pace at this point. Kim disappears. They start running around the house looking for her, and then it leads them back to the kitchen where the lights have gone off. And a really creepy scene. Sarah finds a teddy bear of a bunny in the sink, having water poured over it, and the tap is on, but the bunny's eyes are missing. And then she finds Kim behind the fridge, and then Kim's like, oh, he's here, and here are his eyes, and she's got the bunny's eyes in her hand. And then the mirror shakes, falls on to the cameraman, knocks him out.
Well, they quite foolishly decide to open the glory hole.
Yeah, because they can hear something within the glory hole.
Story of your life.
Go fuck yourself. So, they open up the glory hole, and as it swings open by itself, you get to see the side of pipes getting revealed, and then all of a sudden the mirror falls off, smashes the sound man over the head, and all of that happens within the space of like a few minutes. It's just constant. It's like scare, constant.
Yeah, it balls to the wall, batshit crazy at this point now.
So then Susan starts calling out saying she's being hurt, but you can't see her on the camera. The camera cuts out, and then the camera cuts back, and everybody's happy and they're playing cards. And you don't think, you know, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, it goes to Craig Charles for a little bit of comic relief, because he doesn't
know the camera's on.
He doesn't know what's been going on, so the camera suddenly goes on to him, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm not prepared, the bloody BBC.
Typical BBC.
Yeah, and then it goes back to the camera in the house, and they're all nicely playing a game like they did earlier in the evening, the girls and Sarah Green. And then we go back to the studio, and Dr. Lynn and Michael Parkinson are watching this live feed of them playing the game.
Yeah, and then they get an anonymous caller. Did you get this written down, what he says?
Yeah, so essentially... So this is essentially the big reveal. It's a gentleman on the phone who said that he was a social worker in the 60s for a guy who lived at that address. Now, he was the nephew of the two owners, and it was a sublet, so it was on none of the paperwork for the house. So Dr. Lynn was unaware of this, and he said he was a social worker, and that the guy was a child molester. When he got out of prison, he believed that a woman was living in his body, which is why he wore dresses, and that he ended up killing himself because he couldn't take it anymore in the under the stairs where the glory hole is. And he wasn't found for a long time, and the cats that he kept pretty much ate him.
Yeah.
Including his eyes. So we know that that's Pipes. So that's the ghost that we've been dealing with throughout the film.
And I know you said, you know, you can't really put yourself in a mindset of someone back in 92, but hang on a second. You're sat at home, 1992, you're watching this ghost show, that story gets told. That is some fucking heavy shit.
Yeah. Oh, it is, yeah.
That is something else. That is like oh my god, you dropped a fucking child molesting spirit into this.
Yeah.
While showing us these kids being harmed, and one of them particularly saying, "Don't touch me."
Yeah.
He's touching me. That
Yeah.
is fucking heavy.
Yeah.
And this film's rated 12 in the UK as well.
It is actually.
Which is shocking. I mean, I thought just that little monologue alone might have guaranteed it to be a 15. But no, it's a 12.
Especially you hear stuff like that in the news though, don't you?
Yeah, but I mean, when it's put into the context of this,
Yeah.
and you know this is what they're dealing with,
Yeah.
and especially with what happens next, because I mean, the Lynn quickly realizes that guy hangs up on the phone, and then everything in the studio starts going crazy. Their lights start breaking and whatnot, and Lynn's like, the ghost is in the system, and then she clicks on the picture frame that fell down earlier is still up within the footage they're watching. She's like, the ghost is tricking us. He's showing us earlier footage when everything was all right. So she sits down. She's like, "Oh my god, we've created a seance," and the way she puts it is, it kind of triggers the thought, like, "Oh shit!" So just watching this show has created a seance within your home. So then we're cut back to the street, and emergency services arrive. You can see everyone leaving, but then they're like, the only people that are left are Suzanne, Sarah, and then Chris, the cameraman. So then we're cut to an infrared camera, which is shown early on in the film as a bit of foreshadowing. And you're expecting something to happen.
This is pure Clarice Starling, though,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
It's very Silence of the Lambs.
You're expecting something to happen with this infrared camera. Nothing does happen though, which I think is a missed opportunity.
Well, yeah, you could have got a good scare.
Yeah,
out of that one.
They find a torch. The normal camera comes back on. They're looking for Suzanne within the house. Things are still going crazy in the studio and in the house. Things are shaking and whatnot. And then Suzanne is like, she's calling out for help. She's like, help, he's hurting me, he's got me and whatnot. And then Sarah opens up the glory hole, and you can see there's wind blowing from it. And she's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to stop at you. And she's like, okay, I'm going to come in and help you. She goes in. She gets locked inside there. The studio at this point is a write-off. Everything's broken down, and it's only Michael Parkinson left alone in there. And then next minute, he's talking to the camera, and fucking Michael Parkinson gets possessed and starts reading from the auto cue what Pipes is telling him to say, and talks in a demon voice, and that's it. So these viewers in 1992 were left with Sarah Green locked inside a glory hole, captured by a ghost. This cameraman, fuck knows what's happened to him, and obviously the girl as well. And then Michael Parkinson's possessed. Holy shit.
But then you get a list of
credits.
You get the credit, which consists of a list of directors and writers and actors.
So, which begs the question, was that shown on the night, or was that only included for the DVD release?
No, it was. It was.
Was
one
it?
It was one of the things that the BBC told them they had to have.
So all these people that complained and everything, then they must have turned it off before it finished.
Well, probably.
Or just not paid attention to the
Or
credits.
just not paid. They probably just didn't pay
They're probably so
attention.
scared that they probably didn't even pay attention to that.
Well, what happened was there was a film on the other channel, and the film finished partly into Ghostwatch.
Yeah.
So the film finished, some James Bond film or whatever, and people changed the channel to BBC One before they had that introduction. So I understand to a certain degree why people reacted the way they did during the, the film.
Mm.
But then at the end, you have a list of, personnel who were involved in the film.
Well, somehow they ignored it, and then, obviously all the complaints ensued. You had the suicide and everything, and then it was banned for a good while. it was nominated for a BAFTA at first.
BBC said
Yeah,
not to
Um,
nominate it.
It was banned. The creators, tried to keep it hidden as possible for many years, and then the internet became a thing, and it gathered a cult following, and now it's became this cult film that loads of people are aware of, and people appreciate it as a found footage film now. And obviously we're not the only people that are giving it comparisons to all the likes of modern found footage films. Yeah, and it is highly influential. Fantastic piece of British television.
I find the story surrounding the film more interesting than the actual film itself.
Yeah, the story is insane. There's a documentary out called Behind the Curtains, I believe, that I haven't seen. I really want to see it. Because it's actually got interviews with Michael Parkinson and Craig Charles and everyone who was involved with it from back then, as well as film critics and experts as well. But it's fascinating. It really is fascinating. It's a brave move, very brave.
Very
move.
brave, groundbreaking.
Yeah,
it really was, and I know people use that word a lot, but this was the first of its kind, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a milestone in horror filmmaking. And to think it's a TV film as well. That's just bizarre.
On BBC One.
On BBC One.
On BBC One.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I love it. I mean, I have no problem because of that, and because of how much it still terrifies me to this day. I have no problem giving it a 5-star rating. It's just fantastic filmmaking. It really is. So that's it for Ghostwatch. What was your rating? Did you give it 4?
Yeah, I give it 4.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it for Ghostwatch. I've been excited to talk about that for quite a while, and
yeah, highly recommend it. If
on Halloween.
Yeah.
Watch it on Halloween.
Yeah, it's probably the most Halloween of the films we've done. 'Cause
Yeah.
it was aired on Halloween. If you haven't seen it, I know we've just gone through the whole thing, but we haven't really done it justice.
If anything, this is probably the best way to watch it now. I've posted on social media all day. If you haven't watched it and you're going to watch it, make sure you know about the backstory first, because that is what makes it more effective. If you watch that now, you knew nothing about it, you knew it was a fake, you knew it was a film, it would just seem like, meh, okay, it's no found footage film. But if you know everything surrounding it, it makes it so much more effective. But yeah, that was Ghostwatch. And what do we have next week as another one of your choices?
Next week is the greatest film that has ever been made.
The Room.
The
Showgirls.
It's Spice... no, it's not. It's Silence of the Lambs. My favourite film. I cannot wait to talk about this one. For me, it's cinematic perfection.
Yeah, and quite an unusual choice for Halloween classics. I mean, I think it's a great film to watch at Halloween.
Oh God, I'd watch it any time of the year. But I thought it was a good opportunity for us to talk about it. For Halloween, it's definitely a horror film.
Yes, and that is our final film for the Halloween Classics episodes. And shortly after that, on Halloween itself, we will be releasing a one-off bonus episode where we talk about Scream Queens within horror.
Yes. Very excited about that one as well. We love our Scream Queens.
Yes.
Love them.
We'll be talking about...
in particular.
Yeah, we'll be talking about Dr. Lynn Pascal on that episode.
Dr. Lynn Pascal, yes. The Slay Queen, Dr. Lynn. But yeah, no, really, really excited for the next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed this one.
Yes, so if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. If you're listening on Podbean or SoundCloud, like and follow. And if you are on YouTube listening to this, then drop us a subscribe and a like on there as well. And a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you think to Ghostwatch. And I think... Oh, hang on. No, I'm Gazmo205 on Instagram. GazCruise92 on Twitter.
I am Chris Barker823 on both Instagram and Twitter.
And I think that's about everything. So we will see you same time, same place again next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.